Chapter 25. "Are you feeling better?" whispered Jennifer. Daniel opened his eyes. His head was throbbing with pain, and his entire body felt stiff and sore. As focus returned to his vision, he saw Jennifer's large blue eyes staring into his. He widened his eyes as he saw the concern on his face. "What's the matter, my dear?" asked Daniel. "You took quite a beating," said Jennifer with a worried tone. "Here's some water." She handed him a canteen. He took a sip and wiped his mouth. "Thank you," he said. He slowly sat up and felt a sharp pain in his abdomen. He touched the wound instinctively, but stopped when he recognized the warm stickiness of his own blood. "I think you were shot," whispered Jennifer. "Hang on," said Daniel. "How did I survive that? I should have bled out." "I slowed down time for your wound," said Jennifer quietly. She could hear screaming in the cavern, but it was too dark for her to see what was going on, so she wanted to remain concealed. Daniel grabbed his key and his eyes began glowing in the darkness. He clenched his fists in pain, but after a short time he seemed to relax. His eyes stopped glowing and he sighed. After a few breaths, he turned to Jennifer and smiled. "You've saved me," said Daniel. "I would have died without your help." "You've saved the rest of us so many times," said Jennifer with a smile. "It's good that someone could return the favor." "Don't sell yourself short," said Daniel. "Very few people understand how precious life is these days. I will not forget that you helped me." "Well, anyway," said Jennifer as she looked around. She obviously wanted to change the subject. She squinted her eyes as she noticed several figures lying on the ground. She suddenly recognized the dark coat belonging to Victor Lee. Ignoring the judgment she had exercised to stay hidden, she sprinted out into the open. "Wait!" shouted Daniel. The sound of the doctor's voice put some realization back into Jennifer, and she touched her key. As she sprinted ahead, everyone seemed to slow down until it finally appeared that time was standing still. Her impulse to rush to Victor was frustrated as she saw two unexpected sights. She first noticed the body of Felix light on the ground. Remembering how close she had come to dying because of him brought a mixture of shock and awe as she saw him lying lifeless on the cavern floor. It was not impossible to imagine that Lucas had found some strategy that bested him, since it was his plan that had helped them escape during their previous encounter, but to see him actually defeated made Jennifer gasp. She was also relieved that Lizard would no longer have to worry about being hunted by the speed demon key-bearer, and that Felix's goals to sacrifice him would never be realized. She imagined that Lizard felt similar to how she had felt when he scooped her up and carried her out of the reach of the slavers that had captured her. Notwithstanding Daniel's talk about the value of life, she could not help but feel a bit of relief herself in the knowledge that Felix Light was dead. While she was impressed at the sight of the large muscular augments lying dead on the ground, and worried about Kirana, Jonathan, and Stephanie lying unconscious a short distance away, the second sight that stopped her in her tracks was that of Row 82 holding a glowing mirrored key and looking at Sig with glowing eyes. She looked at the expression on Sig's face and determined that he had been laughing. She decided that meant almost nothing, since Sig laughed loud and often and frequently over things that she did not find remotely amusing. She looked toward Lucas. To her bewilderment, he seemed to be pleased as well. The light in Jennifer's eyes faded and time returned to normal. Lizard spun around defensively, but relaxed when he recognized it was Jennifer. "What happened?" said Jennifer. "Row 82 is the bearer of the perception key," said Sig with a smile. "Now that's ironic." She could not deny Sig's statement. The man that had accused them of blasphemy for using divine keys ended up being chosen as a key bearer. Unlike Sig, Jennifer did not find the irony humorous. "That's Amanda Madson's key," said Jennifer angrily. "Amanda Madsen?" asked Sig in a confused tone. Who is that? She must have been the perception key bearer in the Golden Age, said Lucas. You're remembering more, aren't you, Jennifer? I remember that she was warned not to come here, said Jennifer. Aaron warned both her and Max Gray, but they didn't listen. And I didn't understand until... She was again tormented with the realization that she was too late to do anything about what happened. Hearing Jennifer converse with Sig and Lucas brought Daniel out of hiding. As he approached, he gasped. What happened? Asked Daniel. Row 82 shot Kirana and Jonathan, said Lucas. They need your attention. Daniel resisted the urge to ask why Row 82 was holding a divine key and rushed to the injured. Row 82 gave him a confused look, but said nothing. After a bit of time using the Heaven's Breath key, Daniel was able to heal Jonathan and Kirana. Soon they were conscious and getting to their feet. Daniel moved to Victor since he appeared to be the next most serious case. What is this? Asked Jonathan as he saw Row 82 holding the key of perception. He's right, said Kirana. There must be some mistake. He's a murderer and a psychopath. We don't pick the key bearers, said Lucas. My question to the augments is probably worthy of our consideration. Have you ever wondered what it is that makes a person become a key bearer? It's not genetics. It's not ambition. It's apparently not rhyme or reason, said Victor as he got up. Jennifer smiled at Victor, relieved that he seemed to have recovered. No, it's not, agreed Lucas. Why choose the youngest to be the bearer of the Key of Origins? Shouldn't that go to someone more experienced? Wasn't the fact I was chosen also ironic? You're not an augment, said Victor. Daniel moved to help Stephanie. He wondered if it would be wise to use more traditional treatment, since when she became aware of the situation, she would probably not handle it well. But even augments are people, said Daniel. They are alive, and all life has a purpose. There are millions who died for no apparent purpose, said Row 82. I do not see how you can believe that all life has purpose. Only some are significant. I can't even, said Daniel as he struggled to control his anger at Row 82. Finally he closed his mouth, lowered his head, and breathed deeply. What is the worth of a slave that dies in childhood? Asked Row 82 calmly. What was the purpose of their life? Ultimately, you cling to empty claims about life having purpose. All acts of all creatures can be measured by whether they allow those that act to survive. That's it, said Daniel. I'm waking Stephanie up. His eyes glowed as he took Stephanie by the hand. She slowly opened her eyes and got to her feet. She gave Daniel a warm smile, but then a look of confusion when she noticed how angry he appeared to be. She looked around and saw Row 82, who still had glowing eyes. She had hoped seeing him hold a divine key had been a trick that Lucas had used to turn the augments against one another. She picked up Kirana's sword and rushed toward Row 82. Sig stopped her. "Hang on there," said Sig. Stephanie struggled to be freed, ignoring Sig's pleading for calm. "We need to sit down and figure out what we're going to do together. There's only one more key before we have all 9, you know." Stephanie continued to struggle. Kirana, Victor, and Daniel resisted the urge to argue with Sig. They did not like the idea of Row 82 in their group. To them, augments represented the deterioration of humanity that occurred after the Golden Age. They were the blemish on society that had prevented any restoration of the former glory that had been known. Their impulse to kill Row 82 was not without cause. He had endangered every one of their lives. Had it not been for the powers of the divine keys and some clever strategies courtesy Lucas Flynn, they might have all died at this augment's hand. "Well, speaking of the last divine key," said Lucas in a solemn voice, "I don't know what happened to it." "What?" gasped Sig. "You knew about all of the others. Why not the heavenly shield?" "It never reached our time," said Lucas. "It can't be destroyed, though, can it?" asked Victor nervously. "But if it wasn't destroyed, then it would have reached our time, right?" The destroyer had immense power, said Lucas. I don't know. Stephanie stopped struggling in exasperation, but Sig did not release her. I don't think the key was destroyed, said Victor. I have another idea. He turned and looked at Jennifer. She blushed slightly as he looked into her eyes. You are from the Golden Age, said Victor. Preposterous, said Row 82. That's impossible. I think Victor is right, said Daniel slowly. But I don't remember what happened to the key, said Jennifer sadly. I was too slow and too late to help Drew Baker. Drew Baker? Asked Lucas. He was the bearer of the heavenly shield, explained Jennifer. He was killed protecting me, but he shouldn't have had to protect me. Tears welled up in her eyes as she remembered Drew in his long white coat and the golden shield that had protected her from the destroyer's wrath. Hang on, said Sig with a smile. He turned to Lucas. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? He asked. You're wondering if we can change things, said Lucas. Yes, said Sig excitedly. What if that's the reason that we've been chosen? Not because of some genetic marker, and not because of ambition to get control over what is left of the world. What if we are meant to restore the world? What if we were being prepared this whole time? What are you saying? Asked Kirana, who was not following his train of thought. He's proposing that there was a purpose to life for all the people who have struggled and survived since the destroyer came, said Daniel softly. Yes, said Sig. It was to create a world that would train us. That seems quite arrogant, said Row 82. You're the purpose for life after the destroyer? That's not what he means, corrected Lucas. He means that fate created a scenario in which it could raise a new council. He believes we were destined to find the keys. I don't believe in destiny, said Row 82. You don't believe in anything, said Victor in a disgusted tone. I don't have to in order to survive, rebutted Row 82. And yet you were chosen to bear the key of perception, just as Lizard was chosen to bear the space key, said Jennifer calmly. Row 82 clenched his teeth, as he was unable to think of a remark that seemed cutting enough. He hated the thought of being chosen by fate, or that there was a fate at all. We weren't chosen to restore the world, continued Sig. We were chosen to save it. You want to time travel and defeat the destroyer, asked Lizard. Exactly. Yes, exclaimed Sig excitedly. Stephanie kicked Sig in the shin. What was that for? Asked Sig. Stephanie motioned with her head toward her hands. In Sig's excitement, he had squeezed her wrists, and she was in pain. Oh, sorry, said Sig as he released her. Stephanie, said Lucas cautiously, as she reached into the large pocket on the bib of her overalls. He breathed a sigh of relief as she pulled out her tablet. I have a bad feeling about this, said Stephanie through her device. Felix Light wasn't alone. He is a part of a larger plan of the demon worshippers. Felix Light is dead, said Lizard with air quotes and a great deal of satisfaction. Yes, I can see that, said Stephanie as she typed, but he was counting on dying. That doesn't sound like Felix, said Lizard. He spoke to a woman named Sarah Hawkins, said Stephanie. Does that name mean anything? There was a pause as everyone looked around, shaking their heads and looking to see if someone else did know something more. Even Row 82 participated in the joint confusion. Felix called her a demon prophetess, said Stephanie, hoping that it might stimulate memories in someone that could explain her role. Again she was met with silence. She made some kind of deal with him that convinced him to risk his life, said Stephanie. Her tablet did not put the emotion that Stephanie felt into its digital voice. She was exasperated. She remembered how Sarah had seemed worried about the new bearer of the key of perception, and while she loathed Row 82 and was planning on killing him, her hatred was overpowered by her gut feeling that they were missing the big picture. Gathering the divine keys is still our goal, said Lucas. Gathering the keys can't be the goal since this augment has one of them, said Stephanie. She typed into her tablet and turned to face row 82 before continuing. Do you intend to help us redeem the world and start a new golden age where everyone survives, not just the fit? No, said row 82 calmly. Stephanie turned to Lucas as she typed. Would you say that we have gathered the key of perception if it is in the possession of an augment that fundamentally disagrees with how to use the key? Asked Stephanie. Lucas rubbed his chin as he considered her point. Stephanie typed again. What do you think causes a person to be chosen as a key bearer? Is he supposed to have it? He is supposed to have it, said Sig with confidence. He obviously has some issues that need to be worked out, but even row 82 can be redeemed, Stephanie. How can we hope to redeem an entire world if we can't even give one person a chance? He's a murderer, said Stephanie. He had a chance before he slit my mom's throat. If there had been a method to make the voice of the tablet scream, Stephanie would have chosen it. She was livid. It is a fair point that he cannot be trusted right now, said Jonathan. Assume we do find a way to go back in time. Is he coming with us? If our goal is to defeat the Destroyer, we will need all of the divine keys, said Sig. He comes. Didn't they have all the divine keys before? Asked Lizard. That didn't seem to help the Council of Nine. That's my point, said Sig. We are the ones that were prepared to go back and defeat them. Have you considered a paradox? Asked row 82. He actually has a point there, said Lucas. If we needed this destroyed world to prepare ourselves to defeat the Destroyer, and we then go back and save the world, then does that mean we don't get prepared and can't go back to save the world? Do we cease to exist if we are successful? Sig cleared his throat and looked at everyone with a confident smile. When I first learned about the divine keys, I was very young, said Sig. I remember stories of a golden age where people lived in peace and the Council of Nine used phenomenal powers to administer justice. Well, I tried to do as I was taught and fight for the exploited farmers and slaves. There was always a part of me that wondered why these great powers could not be restored. When Daniel Young came to me and asked me to help him find them, I knew without a doubt that the request was not an accident. I knew it was destiny. I am not the only one here that has risked my life to help others. Almost every one of you has fought against slavery and oppression at great personal peril. Let me ask, why did you do this if you did not think it mattered? Except for row 82, each of you has voluntarily joined our group, and each of you has been required to fight as a part of this group to try and redeem people from tyranny and oppression. Have our lives become so important to us that we are no longer willing to risk them? Are we no longer willing to fight? If we are pausing at a chance to redeem the world from the Destroyer, which would liberate billions of people, just because there's a chance we might not exist or we might get killed, then why fight at all? If you believe, as I do, that this world can be saved, then I ask every one of you to decide how much you believe it. Is it only enough to come with us for a while and free a few slaves? Is it only enough to stop a few human sacrifices by demon worshippers? Is it only enough to help people when it is easy and you have all the answers? No one made a sound as Sig looked around the room. His voice had progressively grown louder as he spoke. He cleared his throat and spoke softer. I am not afraid to pay the price, said Sig. I am not afraid to fight. I am not concerned about paradoxes or bullets or demon keys or augments or anything that may set itself against us, because I believe that we will prevail. We are destined to prevail. Silence filled the cavern for a few more moments. Even row 82 felt oddly inspired by Sig's speech. After several moments, he spoke up. I am not ready to accept everything that you believe, said row 82, but I perceive that you are being completely honest. I perceive that you fully believe what you said. If I am honest, I must also confess that I also perceive your group of key-bearers are the most fit of any individuals I have ever met. I will come with you, because I am interested to see how this plays out." Row 82's eyes stopped glowing. He did not need his abilities to tell that Stephanie was still furious with him, and that no one really trusted him, but he did not care. He had spoken the truth. "Stephanie," said Jonathan, "you can see the future. Do you believe it is our destiny?" Stephanie slowly got out her key, and her eyes began glowing. Suddenly she found herself alone in the cavern with blue light emanating from the rock formations around her. Victor Lee approached her. "Welcome back," said Victor. "Victor," said Stephanie, "is it our destiny to travel through time and stop the destroyer?" Victor paused and thought about her question. "Well," he said, "perhaps." "What does that mean?" asked Stephanie. "You must go back in time, but you must also be quick," said Victor. "The destroyer is surely tied to your fate, but you are right in thinking there is a bigger picture. Press the others. You must find out who the destroyer really is and what it is really trying to accomplish. Speak with Erica Lawrence." "Thank you," said Stephanie. Victor smiled, and Stephanie's vision came to an end. As she awakened, she found herself in Jonathan's arms. She smiled softly as she looked into his eyes. He cleared his throat awkwardly. She stood up and got her tablet out. "We must go back in time," said Stephanie, "and we must find a person named Erica Lawrence." "Erica Lawrence?" asked Jennifer. "I know her, but I don't know how helpful she will be." "Can you pull us back in time?" asked Sig with a smile. Jennifer nodded. "I think so," she answered. Everyone gathered close. The group gathered around Jennifer as she held her key up. It began to glow. Every moment its luminosity became more intense. Everyone covered their eyes to block the blinding light. After a few moments, the light suddenly went out, and Jennifer slumped to the ground. Suddenly the group perceived that the cavern was no longer empty, but filled with metal beds where people slept peacefully. They also saw a passage that appeared to lead out of the cave, opposite the mine through which they had entered, as the sounds of insects chirping and wind echoed through the chamber. "Where are we?" asked Lizard. "When are we?" corrected Lucas. Victor picked Jennifer up and carried her in his arms as they walked toward the mouth of the cavern. It was cold, but the patients in the beds did not seem to mind. Daniel looked at them carefully to try and do a diagnosis as to their condition. He fought the urge to stop and help them until they had determined the time in which they had arrived. Eventually they made their way out. Those that exited the cave stopped and stared with shock and awe at the night sky. "What are you looking?" started Lucas as he struggled to squeeze by Sig and Lizard's tall frames that had blocked his view. He stopped speaking and froze as soon as his view was unobstructed. It was a big, bright, and unbroken full moon.